All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. You know, we always have controversial figures on this show, and that's not going to change because I think it makes for a good interview, and the man we have with us on the line right now is no different. He is known by many, particularly those on the left, as Trump's little dirty trickster. Some call him a right-wing conspiracy theorist, but he certainly has made headlines recently. This man that we have with us on the line right now, Jacob Wohl, I believe he is 22 years old. He has said that he will enlist with the United States if we go to war with Iran. Jacob joins us right now on the line. Jacob, how are you?
Great to be here. I'm doing well.
Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. A lot of questions to get to with you. So let's start with that. What made you decide to say that you are willing to enlist and risk your life for this country if we do, in fact, go to war with Iran? What made you make that decision?
Well, there's a lot of calls for that. People see that a lot of times pundits will have positions on various foreign policy matters, and they're not prepared to back those positions up in any material way. You look in Congress, and very few congressmen have served. Even fewer of them have kids that serve. And so I decided, look, my position is, and it's been my position for as long as anyone can remember, that we need to change the regime in Iran. To do so, we will likely have to use our military. To what degree remains unclear. And so, of course, I said, if we go to war with Iran, I'm happy to join in and fire the first shots.
Yeah, now, Jacob, which part of the military would you prefer to join? Marines, Army, Navy, Special Forces? Where would you aim to join?
You know, I haven't given that a whole lot of thought because I think we're still quite far away. But I think it would be the Army if I had to pick right this second.
So let me ask you this. Do you think it is fair to call you a right-wing conspiracy theorist? Do you think it is fair for some people to call you Trump's dirty little trickster? What is your response to that?
Well, I don't know about conspiracy theorists. I don't really espouse conspiracy theories. I don't, say, for instance, that 9/11 was an inside job like a lot of people say.
Right.
I don't think the moon landing was faked. I don't believe any of the sort of go down the list big conspiracy theories that you hear spouted out there.
But you do say Elizabeth Warren uses
sex
sex
toys. I'm a
toys.
conspiracy theorist.
You do say Elizabeth Warren uses sex toys and is a dominatrix. Would you not call that?
That's not a conspiracy theory. I remind you that we've had a witness come forward. We've had a witness come forward, and we continue to vet the 2020 candidates, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But we had a very credible person come forward, a U.S. Marine who had a background in sex work, come forward and say that he was with Elizabeth Warren, and she hasn't denied that claim. I will point that out. She has yet to deny that claim. In fact, it seems she has embraced it on several occasions.
All right, but you understand why I asked that question, because if somebody came forward to me that was in the military or not and said, hey, I have reason to believe that Jacob Wohl is a dominatrix.
Now, let me ask you this.
It would be. You understand why I'm asking that, right? I mean, because, you have one person that's saying that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Well,
I'm sure
I don't know, because you would think that by now somebody might have come forward and said that about me if that were the case. The way that things come forward these days, accusations, even if there's even a feather of truth to them, they seem to make their way out. And like I said, it's up to Elizabeth Warren to deny the accusation. She hasn't. She said that, yes, she is a cougar, and basically kind of hinted that she's in an open relationship with her husband.
All right, so even if that is the case, let's just assume that man, that witness is telling the truth. What does it matter to a voting record? Because you're a supporter of Donald Trump. We know Donald Trump's relationships with women, the multiple wives that he has. We understand that Donald Trump most likely had sex with a porn star in Stormy Daniels months after his wife had a child. I guess my question to you is this: why are you only going after the left? I'm not sure if I've ever heard you say anything negative about Donald Trump. And look at his relationships with women in the past. Would you admit to that?
Well, I think there's a huge difference, first of all, between a person like Donald Trump or even Joe Biden, let's say. If Joe Biden had an extramarital affair, I think there's a huge difference between a man doing this and a woman doing this. And anyone who's ever met a woman could tell you there is a big difference. If Elizabeth Warren's in some kind of wild, open relationship with her husband, I think that the American people have a right to know, and it should give us serious pause about her becoming president.
Okay, that's fair, but don't you think the American people also have a right to know if a week before the elections Donald Trump made a $120,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Don't you think the American people deserve to know that? They tried to hide it, Jacob.
Well, I think whether or not he was with Stormy Daniels, and there's a whole lot of doubt there as to whether, what exactly went on there. There's been no evidence brought forward that she was even with him. But if he paid her to keep quiet, as to just keep a story, out of the headlines ahead of an election, I don't think there's any problem with that. Just as if Elizabeth Warren had paid money to this person to keep him quiet, that's well within her rights. That's free and open commerce.
So why did you take this Marine story seriously, despite the fact, okay, he has some experience in sex work? Did he have videotapes? Did he have pictures? Did he have text messages? What evidence did he have that made you believe him?
Well, he had plane tickets and transportation records that matched up exactly with Elizabeth Warren's. You can go back and look at Elizabeth Warren's FEC expenditures and see that she was at the exact same hotels at the exact same time as this young man. And could that be a coincidence? I guess that could be a coincidence, like a plane falling out of the sky in Tehran could be a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. Clearly, this man was involved with her.
Do you think it is possible that Elizabeth Warren has not commented on this because she doesn't care and she feels like anybody could just come up with any type of, and I'm going to just use the word conspiracy theory, and she doesn't feel like it's important enough for her to comment on it? Isn't there a chance that could be possible?
Well, she has commented. She said, "Go Cougars" on several occasions.
She did say that.
"I'm a Cougar. Go Cougars." And this is something that she seems to be embracing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I mean, listen.
And I believe that's actually the mascot of her alma mater as well.
For the record, I will say this. Even if she is there are plenty of open poly people out there. I don't look at them differently. Quite frankly, I would rather someone be in an open poly relationship than somebody cheating on their wife. I will be on the record as saying that. I think there is an important distinction there. But would you disagree with that?
I would disagree. I think that it's less classy, personally, to be in some kind of open, bizarre
Jacob, you're a smart guy.
Keep everything quiet.
Jacob, you're a smart guy. I know you're a smart guy. You mean to tell me that you think it is worse to be in an open, honest, open relationship?
Yeah, it's gross. Nobody wants to know. Think about that. Know about that. It's best if everyone keeps everything quiet. Listen, just keeps it to themselves.
Jacob, again, I'm going to say this again. I know you're not a dumb guy. You think it is better to cheat on your wife and not tell her than to be in an open, honest relationship. See, I don't believe you believe what you're saying when you say that.
If you're a public figure, I think it's incumbent upon you to keep things like extramarital affairs to yourself. You're a role model. You don't want that stuff out there. You shouldn't be teaching kids that crazy. But these relationships are common. We should remember that Elizabeth Warren's a person of academia. And in that realm, the types of relationships that she's been allegedly involved with are quite common. Her husband's still a professor. So it's a different world. I would just prefer that if people become public figures, if they're doing polyamorous stuff, if they're, furries, or if they're doing anything crazy, they keep that to themselves.
Yeah, that was a very interesting episode of Entourage you just referenced there. Do you think that Donald Trump and Melania Trump were in a polyamorous relationship privately? And you would have some decent insight on that, I mean, considering who your father is, and how close he is to the president.
Well, I think the president and his wife are in a great relationship, and they've got a great kid, and everything seems to be on the up and up there.
I have to ask you this again because I think this is important. I am not a Trump supporter. I think he's a horrible human being. I've also gone after people on the left that I do not support. In fact, I do not support Joe Biden. So my question to you is this. Why is it that you only decide to go after people on the left and attack people on the left, yet I can't remember a time where you've ever criticized a Republican or Donald Trump? Don't you think some people could look at you as just being biased? Why don't you go after both sides?
Well, here's what I would stress. At Project 1599, Jack Berkman and I vet candidates. And this time of year, we vet presidential candidates. But I would also point out that you may remember back to the Justin Fairfax story. Women had come out and alleged that he was involved in basically raping them, Justin Fairfax being the lieutenant governor of Virginia. We came out and we offered a $15,000 cash bounty for any proof, video, pictures, anything and everything. We had thousands of people write in And we ultimately concluded at the end of our investigation that Justin Fairfax, a Democrat, of course, had indeed not raped any women. And now our conclusion on that has been totally held up. He's won a bunch of money in settlements now from these women and from CBS News for defaming him. I would also point out that in going after people from both sides of the aisle, we've come after Ted Cruz. We've brought forward a woman who said that she had relations with Ted Cruz in Texas at various campaign stops. She was very credible. Nobody could find any holes in that story. So we have brought out people on both sides. And I'd also point out that we offer to all of the 2020 Democrats, they can come to our headquarters. They can come to 1599. They can take a polygraph. They can take drug tests. And they can answer our questions.
All right.
And the only candidate thus far who has the Berkman-Wohl seal of approval is Bernie. Bernie Sanders has the seal of approval. We don't agree with his positions, but he has the seal of approval.
All right, so I have to bring this up, and I'll give you a chance to respond and to defend yourself to a couple of these things. I think it's fair I point this stuff out. And if you're just joining us or speaking with Jacob Wohl, you mentioned lobbyist Jack Berkman. You've worked with him in an attempt to coerce or talk about a bogus sexual assault smear campaign against Special Counsel Robert Mueller. You've also attempted a fake and similar allegation against Democratic presidential hopeful Pete Buttigieg. It turned out to flop. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Daily Beast obtained audio of yourself and Berkman trying to pressure a potential victim into making a false allegation against Buttigieg. Back in February, you also faked a death threat against yourself and then reported the bogus crime to Minneapolis police. A phone number associated with you was also used to threaten a former GOP campaign worker, even though you have denied your involvement in that. Back in 2016, you were a teenager, and you portrayed yourself in media reports and pitches to potential investors in your company as a hedge fund wonder kid, when it turned out with the experience that you claimed you had, you would have been 8 or 9 years old. Do you care to comment on any of that?
Wow, that was quite the cacophony of smears there, and I don't really know where to start. But what I would say is that I've attracted a substantial following. We have taken on scrutiny with our operation that most people can hardly imagine. Jack and I were the subject of FISA warrants. They looked through our emails and everything else. And at the end of the day, all anyone can find is nothing when it comes to anything we've ever done wrong. So people can make crazy accusations. People can publish anything in the Daily Beast.
Then why did California
have tapes and audio?
Then why did California?
They don't have anything to hold up.
Then why did California authorities issue a warrant for your arrest?
That's something I can't comment on, I'm afraid.
Okay. All right. You can't comment on it, but I'm asking you specifically. All right, that's fine. I won't ask you about that. But why can't we comment on this Mueller thing where you this bogus sexual assault smear campaign?
Here's what people have to understand. When you bring someone out and they have an accusation against a very public figure, these people come under a tremendous amount of media scrutiny. Just to give people an idea, when Mr. Kelly came to us, for example, and had these accusations against Buttigieg, within an hour of him publishing his allegations, his parents, his grandparents, his sister, his brother, everyone in his entire family had received hundreds of calls. And you see that this is something that happens. People can think back and think about Stormy Daniels. She said the accusations were true, then she backed them up, then she came back. This is one of those things that happens because these people come under tremendous pressure from the media, who are really apparatchiks of the Democrat Party, and everyone knows that. And sometimes those people crack. Sometimes they just can't bring themselves to stand up under the pressure. And it's something that everyone should be sensitive about because it's a very real thing.
All right, listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there aren't certain members of the media that are biased. I think just like I would say members of MSNBC or CNN are biased, members of Fox News are biased. I think it goes both ways, but I have to ask you this. Why did you withdraw from the NFA ahead of an investigation, and why did you receive a lifetime ban from the group? I think that's a very fair question to ask.
Well, the NFA is not a government association. That's a group that we had withdrawn from long ago. You're talking about back in I guess 2016.
Yeah, you had some settlements, in and outside of court. So that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look back at that. But as far as the NFA goes, I wasn't a member, and then they wanted to come and perform some kind of audit after I wasn't a member, and we said no. And they said, fine, then you can't be a member. And I said, yeah, that's just what we want. We don't want to be a member. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just how that went.
Okay, so two questions. One, you said that Bernie Sanders has your seal of approval for Project 1599. And you vet candidates, what does that vetting process consist of? And are there any candidates in 2020 that you have information on that we'll be finding out about in the next coming months?
Well, you will be finding out information about several of these candidates. Now, Bernie has come to us. He has undergone vetting, and we've looked through his entire background. Remember, all politicians and all public figures are going to face allegations. This is just the way that politics works. And it even transcends politics. People in Hollywood face crazy accusations. They aren't involved in politics themselves. And so Bernie's had the same thing. If you remember back, people were saying that Bernie's wife had stolen $10 million from a university. We looked into that. Turns out a grand jury also looked into that, and they declined to file charges. And so there's all kinds of crazy accusations against Bernie. We cleared those accusations up. The Internet's a crazy place.
You're saying Bernie Sanders came to you?
He came to us. He came to 1599. That's right.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so there's some people on our social media that wanted me to ask you this question. So you've done videos and pictures with this fence in the background. I don't know if it's your backyard. And then you did another one of those videos where you said you were outside the country, and it appeared that it was the exact same fence. Can you comment on that?
No, so when I'm overseas, I did an investigation of Mr. Biden's entanglements in Ukraine this summer. When I'm overseas, I don't post my exact location because, particularly in third world countries, you worry you might get shaken down by dirty cops, etc. I'll post random locations when I happen to be traveling. This picture in particular was at a restaurant called Saba Niv that's in Odessa, Ukraine, and people verified that. But they just said, look, it's the same fence, and he posted two different restaurants because I don't post my exact location while I'm there. I post it when I get back.
All right. I mean, I guess I'll leave that one alone. But here's where I have an issue with you, Jacob, and I'm going to be honest with you, okay? You've gone after Michael Avenatti time and time again. As you know, Michael Avenatti comes on this show on a weekly basis. I've spent time around Michael Avenatti. He has some issues in the court system, as you have as well. But here's the key word. He's never been convicted of anything. You could think what you want about him. You could not like his politics. The guy's got over $1 billion in settlements. He's been a pretty successful attorney. He's a pretty smart guy, and we enjoy having him on the show. And we've also given you an opportunity now. So my question to you is this. As you've been accused of a lot of things, and you have, had some issues in and outside the courtroom as well, why do you go after this guy so much?
Well, when we talk about Avenatti, what we have to remember is how this all started. Okay? How it all started was that he was arrested for domestic violence, and the next day he blamed me. He said it was a setup. He said that his girlfriend from Estonia was working at my behest to make false allegations against him. And, of course, that's all false, and that's why judges have upheld against him over and over again.
Okay, but those charges were dropped.
Restraining order from this woman.
Fair enough, but those charges were dropped, and he was not convicted. So I don't want to get into the weeds of him going.
I'm just saying that's okay. The genesis of how this begins is him blaming me for that situation.
Okay, is that it? Is that the only reason why you go after him?
That's how it starts. And when he came after me in that instance, it was important that I answered back, and obviously I will be able to talk more about that when the matters are concluded as it relates to his legal issues. So I'm not going to get into the particular investigation that we did looking into his background, but maybe I will get into that once his matters have cleared their way through the courts, which
why not?
May happen.
If you don't mind me asking, why not? If you have information on Michael Avenatti that you think you could share with us that would prove some of your opinions, why wouldn't you share with us right now?
Because I don't want to give him any edge in court coming up here. That's why.
So you're saying you have something upcoming in the courtrooms and you're suing Michael Avenatti for defamation? Can you at least tell us that?
No. What I'm saying is that people have said I played a very central role in getting Michael Avenatti indicted by the feds. I'm not going to talk about whether I did or whether I didn't until those things have cleared their way through the courts, and they will at various times this year. There's 3 trials, and they should be wrapped up probably by the end of the year, and maybe we can get into it then.
All right, let me ask you this. You've met Donald Trump before. You've had conversations with him. Can you share with us what those conversations were?
Well, I wouldn't get into my conversations with the president, but certainly I maintain contact to various degrees with the administration, with the Trump family, and I will tell you that I have a lot of confidence in the leadership. I don't agree with everything he does. I certainly don't agree with the way the Iran situation is being handled, but I have confidence that net, the best decisions are going to be made for the country.
Do you think that we will be at war with Iran based on what's happened last week?
No, I doubt it. I doubt that we'll be at war with Iran in the near future. And I say that because really you have two schools of thought. You have the Obama Iran deal school of thought, which is we're going to bribe them not to do bad things. We have the Trump school of thought, which is we're going to deter Iran not to do bad things. I'm of neither school of thought. I believe that we should crush the regime in Tehran, that any reason or no reason at all is a good reason to do so based on their past behavior, based on their killing of Americans, based on their imprisonment of Americans. And so I'm of neither school of thought. I don't agree with really the way the Trump administration is handling this, nor do I agree with the way the Obama administration handled it. But there aren't many people of my school of thought in the administration, so probably what we're going to see is continued deterrence.
All right, Jacob. So let's have a little fun here. You went after Elizabeth Warren with this, this whole sex situation. Here's my question to you. Why don't you investigate Lindsey Graham? Let's find out why he doesn't have any kids, and is he a closet homosexual? Why don't we go into Mike Pence and find out why he's so homophobic and why he's so anti-gay? Why don't you go into an investigation to see if Mike Pence hangs out in gay bars? Why don't we go into some of these Republicans? I think that's fair. If you're going to go into Elizabeth Warren and find out if she's in this so-called open relationship and using all these sex toys, there are plenty of ultra-right Christian Republicans out there that do some very, very naughty things, Jacob.
You're right. They do some crazy things. The evangelical world gets wild. I mean, and you look at our press conference on Ted Cruz featuring Milo Yiannopoulos, and the things that this woman was laying out, Ted, his wife Heidi, and her doing crazy stuff that I think would shock the conscience of your average Christian right-wing voter in Texas. But certainly we're willing to look into Republicans, and we have nothing against that. We continue to look into various Republicans.
Why do you think Mike Pence is so homophobic, and why do you think so many in the Republican Party are so anti-gay marriage and all that sort of stuff? Why do you think that is?
Well, certainly I think that what Republicans are seeing, and now you're seeing even a resurgence of kind of traditional views of marriage. But what Republicans are seeing is that you had this move to sort of say, okay, we just want marriage. We want marriage equality. We want to be able to put, in the case of a man, put, your husband on your life insurance policy. And Republicans, I think, on the whole, were amenable to this. But now what you see is people identifying as toaster ovens, and Democrats say, you've got to accept that too. If somebody wants to marry a car, you've got to accept that too. And so the level at which the left is saying you have to accept varying degrees of non-normal, and I only say normal in the sense of the statistical term normal, behavior has gone up. And so I think that's why you say that. It's an aversion to the left's trying to normalize crazy things like performing gender transition surgeries on 5-year-olds.
All right.
JD, go ahead. Getting a request here, the Jim Jordan situation where he was at Ohio State and he was either aware or he was hopefully not involved in all these different sexual assaults that were taking place. What are your thoughts on that? And I'm sure based on this conversation that you totally disagree with it. Are you going to look into him?
I haven't looked into that, and I can't even say that I'm very familiar with the story. It may be something worthy of looking into. We'll have to think about that.
All right. Well, listen.
It's a good idea.
Listen, Jacob. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do appreciate you coming on. I don't agree with a lot of what you do. I do think you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm entitled to my opinion. That is my opinion of you. But I do appreciate you stating your case and stating your opinions and being respectful about it. I hope you feel the same way about us. In no way, shape, or form am I insulting you. That's just my opinion. With that being said, I do have a request. We would love to have you back on the show. If you have any dirt on Donald Trump or anybody in his administration, we would absolutely love to have you back on to talk about it, including Ted Cruz and any weird sexual relationships that he has. We want to hear the dirt from you. Can you promise us that if you get any of that information, you can share that with us? Because we would love to have you on.
I can promise you even something more than that. And
Okay.
I can promise you that we've got open files on several people in the Trump administration, people that are, I think, malign actors in the administration, but nonetheless,
Okay.
these people are up to some very weird stuff.
All right.
And we are close to concluding those investigations, and I'd be glad to come on and talk about them.
Fair enough. You will have that forum to do so, and we appreciate that. Be in contact with our producer, Jacob, and I do appreciate you coming on and stating the case and being respectful about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jacob.
That is Jacob Wohl joining us on the show. That was an interesting 25 minutes, I will say that. I didn't know how it was going to go, but I thought it went pretty well. Trump's little dirty trickster. Look, here's the thing. If somebody agrees to be a guest on our show, not a caller, a guest, I'm going to give them a chance to be respectful and state their case. And I do believe he did that, even though I disagree. And, some people might think he wasn't completely honest and truthful.
He had a lot of PC answers. He's actually very polished, more polished than I thought. He's got a lot of experience having these conversations. So props to you there, Jacob. But you're right. We would give O.J. Simpson a platform. We would give Bill Cosby a platform, and it would be totally unbiased.
Yeah, and listen, if he has some dirt on Ted Cruz and maybe how small Ted's penis is, I'll certainly entertain that. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break.
Very odd, Brian.
And when
we're thinking about that.
When we come back, George Lopez was visited by the Secret Service. We'll explain why coming up next. You're listening to The Vegas Take.